What's up, everybody? Thanks for listening to the Whatcast. Mike, how much of the second dump of UFO files have you gone through? Just a little bit?
I've looked at some of the videos. I didn't really get too deep into this one. And it seems to be more of the same bullshit, like nothing groundbreaking, like, oh, here is a FLIR video, and oh, look, there's some grainy thing that flies by a boat. Ooh, right. Spooky.
Yeah, and again, AI ruined everything. I can't believe any of these videos, if they're real or not. It's all easily recreatable or creatable with AI. So
yeah,
it's funny they picked,
just because it's being released through the government doesn't mean it's any cooler than it has a right to be.
Right. I have a likeliness to not trust it even more.
Yeah. It's mind blowing to me. Like me 20 years ago, if this shit was happening, like I would be just amped. Like I would be so deep into this stuff, and now I'm so skeptical of everything that's coming out, and I'm like, what's the agenda? What's the reason? Why are they doing this now?
Mm-hmm.
And why are they just dangling these little bits? Why aren't they actually telling us what's going on instead of just releasing, little tiny things here and there?
Yeah, I think about how stoked I would have been, 20 years ago. But now it's just, even if I didn't have the distrust that I have with the people who are releasing this stuff, again, the simple fact of AI, just the way things,
mm-hmm.
how that shit looks now, is just, that's enough to destroy any video for me as far as proof. They're all
right.
They're all really
and
cool,
especially when it's those FLIR videos, like that's so easy to fake.
Yeah.
And even if it's not fake, like even if it's real, they're so underwhelming that who gives a shit? It's too bad. But enough talk about UFOs.
We're going to talk about it. Is this a ghost story?
Maybe.
I hope so. We've been getting a couple requests.
It's widely believed to be like a demonic possession haunting, but I've got a investigation that I'm going to get into a little bit later that was done by a guy named Patrick Jackson, and he comes to a very different conclusion, which is kind of interesting. It's a conclusion that I haven't really heard directed at hauntings very often. So it's kind of cool. I'm actually, I think I've covered part of a book by Patrick Jackson on the show before. And I'll be covering this book as a whole, but I wanted to talk about his investigation with this case in particular, because for one, it's a haunting case, and haunting cases, it's been a while since we've talked about a nice ghost story, but we'll get to the investigation later. To begin with, we're going to be talking about the Black Monk House, which I don't think we've actually covered on the show before, but it's one that I'm kind of familiar with. And Mateo, we were talking offline, and you said that you were also familiar with the case, at least somewhat,
mm-hmm.
in name at least.
Yeah.
So it's called the Black Monk House because of an entity that was seen there that's referred to as a black monk. But there's more to it than a black monk, and it's a unassuming looking house in Pontefract in the UK. But it became famous after the Pritchard family had reported a series of paranormal, it started with paranormal experiences and then escalated to paranormal attacks. But they actually lived in this house for over 4 years. They moved in 1966 and left in the early 70s. Which, I mean, that's a long time to hold out if you're under paranormal attack.
Yeah, it sure is.
They moved into this house in 1966, and it's for those that like to actually look up the house. It's on 30 East Drive in Pontefract. It's actually you can go and rent it out for overnight stays for paranormal investigations now. Like it's basically an Airbnb for paranormal now, which is kind of cool. So if you're ever in the UK and you want to go stay at a spooky house, you can go there. It's there. But shortly after moving in, the family, the Pritchard family, which was Joe and Jean Pritchard were the parents, and then they had 2 children, Philip and Diane. And shortly after moving in, they began having some unexplained disturbances that they couldn't account for as a result of the experiences, kind of like with the Amityville house. There was a lot of press that went along with it. There were some connections made that the activity may be related to the ghost of a medieval monk that was supposedly connected to a nearby priory, but there's never been a definitive connection made by historians. So it seems like that could be more of like a urban legend sort of situation. But as I mentioned, the Black Monk house is referring to the Black Monk, which is tied to this urban legend. But in the house itself, there were sightings of a dark hooded figure, which they were never able to see the face. It looked like it was either darkness under the hood or the hood was completely obscuring the face. But it would be seen on the property, specifically near the staircase and in the bedrooms. The local press called the entity Mr. Nobody, but the family would refer to it as Fred in an attempt to kind of normalize the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't realize this. There was a horror movie that was made about it called When the Lights Went Out, which I would like to track down. Had I known about that ahead of starting to do the research, I would have watched that, but I just found out about that. So I'm sorry. Maybe we'll talk about it in the Discord sometime. If anybody that's on the Discord has seen it, make mention in the Straight Fucking Horror channel. And yes, that's what it's actually called for the non-Discord users but throw your report on that in that channel and tag me if you'd be so kind. I'd like to hear if it's worth watching. But there's some pretty weird things that were alleged to have happened that kind of seem both similar to what you have from Poltergeist, but with like some fresh twists. Like we've talked about the like stone rains and things like that, where the stones will just like appear through the ceiling and fall into the house. But here, one of the earliest events that they had was that this white, almost like chalk powder, would fall from midair, but it would fall below eye level. So it's not like it would rain on them. It would rain like below their heads and get all over the ground and cover things. But it would just right in the middle of the air just appear and puff all over. But then there would also be puddles of water that would appear on the floor there would be no plumbing even around there. So why is there water? But it would just appear on the floor. And then your classic cold spots and weird like cold drafts that would come through. Fairly typical stuff. But these were witnessed by both family members and visitors to the home. But this was just the early stage of things. Things started to escalate, as they always do in these cases, with poltergeist activity, including lights flicking on and off, cupboard doors opening and closing, objects disappearing only to reappear somewhere else, furniture shaking or moving, and occasionally there would be dishes or other household items that would be thrown across the room.
Pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, but it's your classic poltergeist, and they did have 2 children in the house, so it is possible that this could be poltergeist, the classic poltergeist with children that are coming of age. But there's one story that reminds me of a Skinwalker Ranch thing. There was a packet of biscuits that they had in the kitchen. Completely disappeared. No one could find it. It was found inside of a locked cabinet. No one moved it, though. And it was locked. But that type of stuff happened at the Skinwalker Ranch. Like, I don't know if you recall, but there was a story where this bull went missing, and they found it inside a trailer.
Yes, I remember that.
Like, what the fuck? It's so weird.
Yeah. Things teleporting. What a hell of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And with no discernible reason behind it. And then you're looking everywhere. And the only way to get something inside of a locked cabinet would be to have a person unlock the cabinet, put it in there, and then lock it. And according to the reports, nobody did that. There wouldn't be really any benefit to it, especially if there's like other weird shit going on. Like, why would you be like, oh my God, look at this one. This is so weird. Right, guys? Right? I don't know. But things would escalate even further when they started seeing the black monk, and there was even physical altercations. But the black monk was, the witnesses described it as being a tall, hooded black figure. It seemed to have a monk-like silhouette, and it would stand silently in the hallways, in the bedrooms, and the staircase. It would sometimes appear near the beds or stand on the stairs, but it would seem to typically watch rather than actually be the thing that attacked. But Diane Pritchard, the daughter, she was actually dragged up the stairs by her throat by an invisible force, and witnesses were able to see marks, like finger impression marks, appear on her neck after she was dragged up the stairs.
Yikes.
There were also people that were slapped or felt like they were pushed, and scratches and marks appeared on the body. But it's eventually they decided to leave. But there was this all with the exception of, well, I should say all the earlier stuff has all the hallmarks of a classic poltergeist case. Even some of the violent attacks also kind of, because we've heard of poltergeist cases where people were slapped or scratched. I remember one where I can't remember which case it was. We covered it on the show long ago, but where family members in the house, or one of the family members in the house, was smothered and choked with a pair of curtains by their bed. So that sort of thing. But typically with a poltergeist, there's no like apparitions that appear. It's usually invisible stuff, and you just hear the sounds and things moving. But here we've got the black monk who appears. So it was initially thought that this might be related to a monk from, a local monk, but there were some weird, I don't know, I guess you'd call it blasphemous paranormal activity. A lot of their crucifixes in the house would be damaged or get destroyed. Upside down crosses started appearing on the walls. And if they used holy water to try to bless the place, the activity would ramp up instead of go away, like it was being irritated by the holy water. And then they started smelling strange odors that smelled like rotting or like eggs or sulfur.
Yikes.
But things got even, like, that stuff still, like, if it's like a demonic haunting, yeah, that's really freaky, but that's all pretty typical of this sort of case. There was got to the point where a lot of objects were levitating and flying, but one of the weirdest things that happened here, which I don't recall hearing about in any other case, was green foam or green slime would start coming from their tap water. So they go to turn the water on, and this green slime would come out.
Shit.
They would also start experiencing these weird oily puddles that would just appear with no explanation.
Mm-hmm.
But they had, during this time, they had clergy members come in. They had the policemen come in. They've had the press come in, and it garnered a lot of attention. And it really became popular when a British paranormal author named Colin Wilson started to write about it. This show, or this house, has been on a bunch of ghost hunting TV shows. It's been the subject of podcasts like this one here. There've been attempts to explain this, ranging from the typical hoaxing or the witnesses exaggerating what they saw to psychological stress that was impacting everyone involved. Maybe the family was just seeking attention and making the whole thing up, or they were misinterpreting ordinary events. But there's never been anything definitive to prove that there's something going on here, but also none of the claims from the skeptics really support what's going on. Like I mentioned, this place is still open for you could rent it out and spend the night there. And to this day, people that spend the night there still claim to hear knocking sounds, electronic interference with their equipment, cold spots, and a constant feeling of paranoia, like there's something watching them. So it's not like with the Amityville house, where after the Lutz family left, everything just went back to normal. Like this is something that persists, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But so that's the basic background of it. But with that, I want to get into the investigation by Patrick Jackson. He lives in London, but he made arrangements to stay there for 4 nights to do a 4-night investigation in 2015, I believe. But he wanted to make sure that he was going to be as prepared as possible for this. He didn't want any bias going into it. So to kind of set up for this, a couple weeks before his stay, he decided to kind of ground himself and clear his mind as much as possible. So everything that he saw, he began to break it down and think of it as though it was like a type of mechanism. So he would break down to see, how something would work and on what levels it would work. So he gave in his write-up of this, he provided the example. If you were to look at an object or a machine, he would imagine how they functioned and operated layer by layer throughout the machine or whatever it's doing. Look at all the layers and everything that goes together, so that he can, what he was attempting to do is be able to break things down so that he could make it make sense. So if this happens because of this reason, and this happens, and so on down the line. Like, look at a car engine, for instance. You've got the combustion, but in order for that, you need the fuel to be injected into the engine. You need all the pistons running. So he'd just break it all down like that. Because if something weird were to happen, he wanted to have his mind like already working in that way, so he could kind of break down everything and try to figure out what was going on here. But he set up he had the date. He was preparing to go. On the Sunday before his arrival, his two cameramen, Mike and Steve, went, and they were going to spend the night there and set up the equipment and everything. And as soon as they got set up, they decided, let's go walk around and film and see what we can find. But as soon as they got up to the upstairs, activity started. They started hearing things like cups getting knocked over. Nobody else was there. And then they were hearing marbles that were hitting the wall like stones, like almost like someone was tossing marbles at them. And they knew what they were going to be filming, but they had never experienced any sort of paranormal activity in person, so they were obviously freaked out about it. So they report everything back to Patrick the next day. And when he rolls up to the house, and he said that he was expecting a lot more when he showed up. The house just looks unassuming, and it looks kind of run down, but nothing crazy. So he gets set up and goes into his first night. And to start it off, like any classic paranormal investigator from a TV show, he asks, "Is anyone here?" And as soon as he asked that, from downstairs, he hears a door start banging aggressively multiple times. And then he felt something brush by his face that he later found out were two marbles that were tossed past his face.
Something mean there.
So, yeah, but it didn't hit him. It threw it past him. So, I don't know. But he, after hearing the banging, he runs back downstairs, and he realizes that the pounding was coming from this coal shed, which was off the back porch on the ground level. And so here he's already aware that other investigations have taken place here, and that this knocking in this area seems to be a reoccurring thing. So this starts to set his mind off, where he's starting to see that this is a pattern that takes place. And so if there's a pattern, it implies the presence of a reoccurring process. So he's starting to look at this as like a mechanical process instead of just like a weird event.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had nothing like crazy happened on the second day, but he had a weird experience with 3M tape. And for anyone who doesn't know what 3M tape is, there's different grades of it, but like command strips that you'd put on your wall, usually like you could throw one up and it would hold like 10 to 15 pounds, depending on what kind you get. Some of them only hold like 5 pounds. This one that in particular that he was using held 15 pounds, and he was using it to hold a camera mount on the wall in a higher position. And he said the camera with the mount weighed a total of 2 pounds. So well within the limit. And so he sets this up and he walks downstairs, and basically he said he had to take a dump. So he's in the bathroom, and all of a sudden he hears an audio alert from his walkie-talkie say low voltage. And then he hears a loud bang at the base of the stairs. So he's sitting there in the pooper, and he hears this and hears the bang and doesn't know what the hell's going on. And then he starts hearing a deep growl from the other side of the bathroom door.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah. And he said, interestingly, I'm going to quote him because I thought this was pretty funny. He says, "Interestingly, I found the moment quite amusing as I was sitting there on the toilet, halfway through a number 2, all while this growling was coming closer. And I thought to myself, well, I'm in the right place, I guess." So funny.
Too true, sir. Too true.
Yeah. So he finishes up, he leaves the bathroom and calls his crew over, and they find the bracket from the camera at the bottom of the stairs. So he goes and looks at the tape. The tape itself isn't torn or damaged. It's still there. It's still stuck to the wall. So he said the only way that this could happen is if somebody forcefully pulled it off, which would have likely pulled the tape off with it, or somehow the chemical bonding agent was dissolved. So he decided to try this again, and this time he put on less weight. He removed the camera from the bracket and just put the bracket by itself, set it up, new strip of tape, turned and walked away, and within seconds the bracket popped off, causing it to tip towards him. He actually took pictures, he was recording it, but in his book he provided pictures of this happening, like frame by frame. So frame 1, you see it mounted. Frame 2, you see it tip forward. Frame 3, it's gone. So he, as it was falling, he was able to catch it so it wouldn't break on the floor. But then he's like, well, maybe we have to clean the glass. So he cleans the glass off that he had it mounted to. He puts less weight on, puts a new strip of tape on, and again, it fell. And he could not get this tape to hold the stuff. And he tried multiple different pieces, and it just wouldn't work. So he's saying that whatever is causing the phenomena may be operating like a capacitor that charges and discharges energy to perform this action. He said, based on this alone, this suggests that this is not a deceased human being, like it's not a returned ghost or spirit. He thinks that this seems like more technical behavior. So then after he did it 3 times, all 3 times it failed. So then on the 4th time, he set up the test again. And on the 4th time, nothing happened. Everything functioned like it should have. But he said to him, the weird thing was the first time that this happened, there was a noticeable effect on the equipment because the message went off saying battery low when it had just been full and functioning. And then after the battery low, then it fell. So there was some sort of energy interaction there. But he also noticed, and this is kind of weird. I'm going to go a little bit into the weeds with this, and maybe someone who understands technical stuff and AI related stuff can make more sense of this than I can. But he started picking up the number 666 on the digital thermometer he was reading. And the temperature was never 666, but it appeared that way on the digital readout for this thermometer. Obviously, we all know 666 is the number of the beast. But he's making a different claim about this. He's saying that in the world of information technology, that numbers get assigned for specific reasons and that they can have a mathematical significance. And in the case of 666, it's known as a triangular number. And triangular numbers count the objects that can form an equilateral triangle. So the number 666 is the sum of the first 36 natural digits. So if you had 1 plus 2 plus 3 on and on all the way up to 36, the total is going to be 666, which makes it a triangular number. And he's saying that this mathematical property may add a layer of significance to its appearance in a paranormal context. He's saying that there's a connection between the appearance of the number 666 in the paranormal context, and it also shares a relevance with AI and neural networks. Triangular numbers, including the sum of 666, are mathematically significant and are used in various mathematical and computational contexts. In the realm of neural networks and AI, fuzzy numbers and triangular numbers can be employed to model and evaluate complex systems, especially when dealing with uncertainty and risk. The fact that 666 is associated with AI and neural networks suggests a possible link between the paranormal phenomenon observed and artificial intelligence.
Oh.
So he's wondering if the number 666 is being used as like a notification code for a system that might be turning online or becoming armed or whatever. And this might be the code to get that to happen.
Right.
So that is kind of interesting, but he ended up staying for 2 more nights. And in those 2 nights, he observed weird electronic effects, including behavior from the walkie-talkies, which would basically, they'd be fully charged and then they would die for no reason. They would start tracking unusual energy fields on their K2 meters. Their computers would start bugging out and like glitch and randomly freeze. And then on his last night there around 2 a.m., all the camera batteries died at the same time. Everyone had basically no sleep up to that point, little bits here and there, but they were all physically exhausted, psychologically exhausted. Now all the batteries go off in their cameras. And so he calls out the ghost and he says, "This is your last chance. We don't have any cameras. If you're there, say hello." And he said at that moment, he witnessed this, he said it was an upright black mass. So he didn't necessarily say it was a hooded figure. He just said it was an upright, basically like a shadow. But it slowly glided away, heading towards the kitchen area. So he, at this point, because he called out to it and then it manifested, he didn't want to provoke it any further. So he stayed quiet and watched it. But he said when he was watching it moved in what he described as a digital-like manner. And he said its movements were distinctive, but they didn't appear to speed up or slow down at any point in time, and they maintained consistent rate of movement. But he said it could come to a stop and change direction effortlessly, which would indicate that it moved without encountering friction, resistance, or any sense of weight at all. And he said he would relate it more to having the movement precision of a machine. So they started to move through the house, and they went into the lounge area. And he noticed that this vertical black mass appeared through the glass doors. So they were on this mass was on the outside of the glass doors, looking in at them, or he presumed it was looking in at them. And he said he stared directly at it, and suddenly it just darted away, and they just left. Basically, it was behind this window, and then it just left. But so this was the last event that happened that night, and he started thinking about things, and he said that the activity itself seemed to be interactive, but he also observed it manipulating objects and creating weird electronical disturbances, which is something else that has been described with some of these stronger poltergeist cases, as well as the Skinwalker Ranch and Stardust Ranch cases. But he said in addition to the electronic disturbances, they were also starting to have weird psychological disturbances. And all of this combined made him think that this couldn't possibly be the spirit of a dead person. But he said that what he was experiencing would not align with any behavior from a person. And this, to me, is a key piece, because so frequently stuff like this happens and people talk about dead people, like who died in the house and their spirit is still here. But think about it, like if you die and your spirit can stick around as a ghost, why would your behavior change? Why would you all of a sudden be like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking knock over glasses and smash a plate over little Johnny's head and go kick the dog. Like, none of that makes sense from like, if you are given I was gonna say gift, but I don't know if it would necessarily be a gift. But if you are left to roam the earth as an immortal spirit, why would you just all of a sudden be like, you know what, I'm gonna do weird shit just because? Even if you say like, well, yeah, to fuck with people, I would fuck with people. Sure, maybe when you first start out, but if you've been dead for decades or centuries, like, that shit's gonna get old. You know, that's not gonna be a source of kicks anymore.
Right. I'd say out of frustration and maybe trying to get somebody's attention, but at first, you make a great point. At first.
Yeah, yeah. But he starts like I said before, and he was kind of breaking ordinary things down by processes. And this one he was doing the same thing with, and he said it appeared to be kind of like a cat and mouse game. But it was also indirect and evasive. So he kind of said this seems to be the repetitive process-driven behaviors of a machine, something that you would see within a machine. But he also, along with the psychological and everything, he said that he started experiencing this high pressure sensation in his skull. And he said it got to the point where his brain couldn't even like really function at the level it used to, almost like it was like a constant buzzing in his brain. And they ended up leaving after their 4 days. He went back home to London, and he said he was feeling really rough, like almost like a hangover, he said, where this buzzing was in his head and he just couldn't focus, and things were kind of difficult for him to move on from. But he didn't experience anything weird for the first 4 days. But on the evening of the fourth day, that vertical black mass all of a sudden rushed past him in his house. And he said he watched it as it rushed past him. It hit the wall and moved up the wall and then made a left through the door of the room. Within seconds of that happening, his Wi-Fi router completely died. And then the black mass came back into the room and then faded away.
Holy shit.
Then the following day, he started hearing scratching noises that were coming from the top corners of the walls. Like, this is like Lovecraft shit, man. Like, so fucking creepy.
Yeah.
But he hears these the scratching sounds coming from the top corners of his walls. And he said it sounded like something with sharp nails was just scratching on the wall. Like, I don't know if anyone has pet rats or has ever had like mice in your walls or something, but that's what I'm picturing. And then his electrical stuff started getting fucked with, and he would have fluctuations in his lighting. Sometimes he would sit at his computer at night and the illumination from the screen would just completely change and like dim as if something moved in front of it and then left. Then he started witnessing this black orb the size of an orange that would fly around. And so he started to pull out his paranormal investigation equipment, and he pulled out a field meter that would detect certain electronic fields. And instantly this thing started going off, tracking this black orb that was flying around his room. But at night, things would get worse, and he'd hear tapping and banging. And then he started hearing the sound. He said it sounded like someone with a rubber bouncy ball was bouncing the ball off his walls and off the desk in his room. And he said it wasn't so much threatening as it was just really annoying. And then this went on for about two weeks. So 4 days went in. 4 days in, he saw the black mass, and then this started occurring for 2 weeks. And at the close of that time, he had his last major encounter. He had come home from work. It was around 9 p.m. He was getting ready to go to bed. He laid down, and out of nowhere, he saw a ball of light shoot up from the floor of his bedroom. It stopped abruptly, level with him, and he said he felt like it was looking at him. Then he heard the same scratching noise as before, but this time it was on the wall right next to where his head was, like behind him. Like, think if you were in bed and the back of your bed is up against the wall and you're like sitting up in bed. He said at the wall right behind his head, he heard this scratching noise. And then the scratching noise stopped and the small ball of light went right through the window. And after that, most of the strangeness stopped. But he said the psychological effects lasted for months, and he couldn't feel settled. He found it really difficult to focus. He was irritable. He had trouble sleeping. He said at nighttime the darkness seemed more intense than it had previously. He started feeling like he was being constantly watched. And he said he felt like his nervous systems had been fried and that his body was struggling to transmit signals to other parts of his body. And he started looking into it. And he said one thing that really triggered him was when he started feeling this distinct sensation that he referred to as being a sunburn on the inside of his body. Huh. And this aligns directly with symptoms of radiation poisoning known as acute radiation syndrome. And it's caused by short but high doses of radiation that can also lead to brain swelling, which is referred to as cerebral edema. And he started to display this as well with the brain swelling. And it took him months before he started feeling normal again. And because all this was going on, he hadn't even really gone through the footage. So he decides to reach out to Mike and Steve to see how they're doing and see if they looked through any of the stuff. And he found out that they were having the same sort of experience. But they had cases where they would have things around their house that would just shatter for no reason. And one of them even reported hearing a disembodied scratching voice at nighttime. So all in all, it took him about a year before he started to review any of this footage. And he started sharing it by, he would take clips with his phone and like he would play the unedited footage on his computer and then film it on his phone. And one of them he filmed and he had the audio off on the footage that he was watching. So it was completely silent, but he was filming. And when he played it back, there was an EVP on there that he said sounded like it said, "Keep out, I'm here to touch." But the weird thing about the EVP is that it wasn't like your typical EVP where it's somebody, you just hear like a whisper in the background or whatever and you have to decipher it. He said this was a crafted, multi-layered message that was using sound samples from videos he had been watching.
What?
And he said the first part of it was a AI generated voice from an ad on YouTube. There was another one that was from another video he had watched. There was a voice on there that was a northern accent, which would have been identical to the people in the area where the house is from. And then there was a looping whisper that continued to say, "Keep out." And all of that was produced he filmed it and then played it back and it was there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like right out of a movie.
Yeah, it really is. And so basically, and when I cover the book in full, I'll get into a lot more of this, because it's a very interesting take on the paranormal. But basically, what he's saying is that hauntings might be a mechanical thing. Whether it be like a alien program or a Matrix sort of situation, or maybe even the mechanical elves from the DMT realm. I don't know, but He's trying to make the claim that this paranormal activity is a mechanical process, and people that experience the hitchhiker effect from we talked about that with that UFO documentary a few months ago, when certain witnesses on there from the government said they went to Skinwalker Ranch and then they had the hitchhiker effect.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's like if you think of it like I guess like a Terminator type program, where you've got the drones that are flying overhead scanning everything. And maybe in this instance, like they are setting up like a zone of weirdness in certain areas for one reason or another. It's beyond us to know. But when you go there, you are now on their radar. And if you seem interesting to them, they pay you a visit off site and you start experiencing some of the things that go on there.
Right.
But Patrick Jackson said when he was going through this experience, it got to the point where he refused to let it bother him anymore. And he said one night before that ball of light came in and left, he heard this hissing next to his ear, like something was right next to him hissing in his ear. And he just said, if that's all you got, you're going to have to try a lot harder. Like it wasn't bothering. And then soon after that the light came in and left. He heard the scratching and then everything dissipated from there. But it's interesting that he underwent this experience and then had symptoms similar to radiation poisoning.
Right.
I wonder if he actually did have, like, even had brain swelling. He had the sunburn on the inside feeling, the constant sense of unease. What's that all about?
To me, those are symptoms of something else as well. To me, I think this guy was downright being possessed.
Oh, so you're going the possession route, eh?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that him emotionally being fed up and challenging the thing was enough for it to leave.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in covering the book itself is called The Sphere Network. And I will be covering this sooner rather than later. But I wanted to, it tied in, this investigation tied in with the Black Monk House. So I figured I would jump on it a little bit and kind of lay some breadcrumbs for future episodes. But it's definitely an interesting take on the possibilities of the paranormal. And to me, it kind of ties in with all the high strangeness that goes on with UFO or alien encounters, but also it ties in with my Bigfoot is not Bigfoot episodes.
Right. What a unique way to look at the case as it was, developing for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if he's always felt that paranormal events had a type of mechanical feel to it like that, or this case itself presented that notion to him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was this. I think it was a theory that he was kind of working on. Maybe it wasn't like an official thing that he was recording, but just like these thoughts starting to come into his mind. And I think as he was experiencing things here, because he was already training his mind to break things down from a mechanical position, that as he was doing that, he's like, oh shit, and things were starting to click. Like, if this were to be happening over and over based on, X event happening, causing Y reaction, and this happens over and over, this is a pattern that is being established here. And if there's a pattern, there's got to be a reason for the pattern that we can break down. And I think that kind of led him down this path.
Right.
But the rest of this book is basically him firming up that theory. So I will definitely be covering this sooner rather than later. I don't know if it'll be within the next month or two, but I would say safe bet sometime before fall, I'll be covering this. So if anyone wants to read it, again, it's called The Sphere Network by Patrick Jackson. If you want to read it ahead of time, we can talk about it in Discord, and we'll be doing a show on it. Maybe we'll make a live show if there's enough interest, and if there's other people out there that read it, maybe we'll do a live show on Discord and take comments and questions through the recording. For those that want to know about Discord, because I mentioned it a few times, we do have a Patreon. I don't remember what the things are, but we do have a Patreon. You can go there. You can, if you join, you'll get access to our Discord, bonus stuff. We've got different tiers. One's a sticker tier. You get a new sticker every month. Super sexy, high quality stuff. And then if you're at the highest tier, you also get the limited edition art prints each month along with a sticker. So you don't miss out on the sticker, but you get a completely unique art print that is not just a print of the sticker. It is different and it's cool and you want it. Trust me.
Yeah, this month I'm actually surprising the print club people with posters. So
shit.
Look out for that.
From what I've heard, it's reverse negative up close of Mateo's butthole. So get on it. Get on it, guys. Patreon.com/thewhatcast. And specifically, when you join, make sure you leave a message in the Discord saying that you are here for the butthole.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.